How do you start a conversation with someone you've never met, you don't see, and you can't even read? 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗻 sent in a great comment. Would love a video on how to apply this knowledge, but to emails sent leads. That message intrigued me and inspired me to create this video. It was a smart question, especially as a follow-up to what I addressed last time, which was matching buyer energy to close more deals. So, how can you reach out when there's no energy to match it? No voice, no vibe, no body language, just you and an empty inbox waiting for the right words. One answer lies in what killed the cat, and that's curiosity. When you trigger curiosity, you spark attention. You interrupt patterns, and more often than not, you get a reply. According to Harvard Business Review, cold outreach emails average a response rate of less than 1%, which is what I found to be true. But when you know how to lead with intentional curiosity, they found that response rates go up 10x or more. So let me show you how to turn a cold email into a real conversation, even when you have no clue who's on the other end. Let's break it down. You've heard me say it before, match their energy. But that's hard or impossible to do when this is the first time you reach out to them. In email, you don't get pacing, you don't get pitch or body language. You don't even know they're the kind of person who makes fast decisions, moves quickly or slowly, or someone who takes their time to reflect and weigh emotional or practical implications. So instead of trying to match what you don't know, which is a hit and miss, create a moment that lets their energy reveal itself to you. That means your first message shouldn't be trying to prove anything. It should feel more like a conversation starter at a cocktail party. Not like being accosted by a street vendor hawking their wares aggressively on the sidewalk. We're not trying to convince, we're trying to entice. And that invitation starts with, you guessed it, curiosity. Here's a harsh reality. Most cold emails get ghosted or disregarded for one reason. They talk about the sender, not the reader. And here's where things often go wrong. People, senders, default to formulas or frameworks, but context matters. So instead of following plug-and-play templates that are not relative, ask yourself, would this open a conversation or just get thrown out the window? Focus less on what to say and more on why they'd want to keep reading. That's the first shift. Then make them stop and do a double take. Let's talk about something powerful that's often overlooked. Surprise. Not shock for the sake of drama, but a moment that breaks the mental patterns that makes the reader do a double take. And yes, it often begins where most people don't even take into consideration the subject line. That's your first impression. Not just your first sentence in the email, the subject line. That's the doorway to the whole conversation. So it needs to make someone pause, reread, and feel something unexpected. That could be a contradiction that doesn't belong in the business context. It could be a curious contrast to what they expect in an email or for someone like you. It could be also a nod to something weirdly topical, like tariffs, Donald Trump, end of summer, latest news headline, whatever. Just get creative and become interesting. Or just honest language that doesn't try to impress. Humor, contradiction, topical pattern breaks, all work for one reason. They interrupt the scroll. They snap the reader out of autopilot and into a moment of curiosity. So instead of aiming for polish, aim for presence. Make them pause, tilt their head, think for a second, maybe even smirk. Because when curiosity kicks in, engagement follows. So that reminds me of a quick story. Years ago, I wrote a perfect what I thought was perfect outreach email. It was personalized, it had value, it was loaded with insight. It took me 40 minutes to write, obsessing over where I placed the comma, and the result? Crickets. Then I sent a much shorter message a few days later, far less polished, but far more real, contextual. I got a reply quickly and booked a call. And here's the difference. The first one was polished, too professional. The other was present and not necessarily perfect. People aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for connection, for something that feels like it came from a real human, someone that cares. You don't have to wow them. You just have to make them wonder and curious to want to engage with. So let's zoom out from tactics and look at the flow that creates momentum for them. I call it the pre-qualified to proximity flow. So it starts by triggering curiosity. Start the dialogue with relevance and intention. Then invite discovery, not a call. Create space for a reply, not a booking. Then you move on to offer a thought-provoking insight. Not to impress, but to engage and be contextual. Then confirm engagement. When they do reply and engage with you, adjust your energy to match theirs. From there, go into creating proximity, a better connection. And when the timing feels right, suggest a real conversation. You're not pushy, you're not salesy, you're not needy, you're just prompting. And that's how you guide from curiosity to connection to conversation. There's one phrase I often use that changes the dynamic. It gives them an easy out, respectfully. That what gesture flips the energy from pushy to present. Because now it's not about selling, it's about honoring that space. And that's what draws people in. Something that allows them to say no, which means a yes. So, when you're reaching out in a cold email, don't try to be clever, convincing right away. Just be interested. Create curiosity. Be unexpected. Be human. Spark interest. Break their daily routine and pattern. Open a loop that they want to close. If your first email makes them feel something, even for a second, you've already won half the battle, because connection starts before the reply. If this gave you a new way of looking at email outreach, hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment if you need help in figuring how to put this all together. Let me know, what's the most unexpected email you ever sent, or the most unusual one you actually replied to. And if you want help building messages, conversations, and discovery flows that convert without pressure, reach out. Let's redesign your inner game so that your outer game can match your vision.